Hello and welcome to episode 45 of the Victorian Studio podcast. My name is Maureen and I'm coming to you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada on Monday, August the 15th, 2016. Welcome to all new and returning viewers. I hope you enjoy your visit with me in my studio today. I also wanted to thank everyone who has left comments both on YouTube and in the Ravelry group about my previous episodes. I really do appreciate them. Thank you so much for all your very sweet comments. Also, I wanted to remind anyone that is participating in the Canada Cal that is continuing to go on. In the Ravelry group, we have now 56 finished objects, and they're all so wonderful. I don't comment on them in the finished objects thread so that I can draw for prizes when it finishes up at the end of September, but I have been checking that love button every time I see them, so you can be well assured that I've really been enjoying all of the projects everyone has been submitting. They're all wonderful. Well, I thought today I would switch up the format of the podcast just a bit. Instead of going through all of my projects that I've been working on, today I'm going to concentrate on just one single project. I've been very monogamous in my knitting over the last couple of weeks, so I thought for a change I would just speak about this one project. Now, it's something that I started after I podcast the last time, and I just completed yesterday. So I hope you don't mind seeing this little bit different format. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it's something I'll do again in the future. But it's a very special project and very timely. It's something that I wanted to make sure that I got done this week because it's something that I chose to do for the Ravellenics. Now, if you're not a Ravelry member or a new member of Ravelry, you may not know what Ravellenics are. They're a series of events that are held in conjunction with the Olympics. Now, if you're a long-time viewer, you may know that I started knitting at the last Ravellenics. Sarah from My Favorite Sheep invited me to her group to participate in the Ravellenics, and that was back in 2014. And that was when I did my first official Ravelry project. So I was very excited to participate again, and of course it began last Friday, not this past Friday, but a week ago Friday, same day as the opening ceremonies of the Rio Games. And what it is knitters or crocheters or any fiber artist that is on Ravelry decide to do certain projects that will participate in, not really competing against anybody. You're basically competing against yourself. You want to do a project that fits into a category of some of the events that Ravelry has set up. And there are different events based on the type of project you do, or if it's a work in progress or frogging event. The event that I am participating in is the shawl event. And if you were here the last episode, you'll know that I was dyeing up some special yarn, my first gradient, to do my maple leaf shawl. And that's the project that I entered in the shawl sailing, I believe it was called, event shawl sailing. So I didn't cast on until the opening ceremonies began, and so that was on the Friday a week ago, and I finished up the project last night. So I believe it was about 9 days that I got this project completed in. So I was very pleased to do that, and today I spent the morning entering the finish line for the shawl event. So Ravelry hand out medals, that is little avatars for projects that cross the finish line. So it's a lot of fun. I'm part of 2 Ravellenics groups this year. One is Team Canada and the other is My Favorite Sheep with Sarah again. So same teams that I participated with last time. So it's been a lot of fun, and so as I mentioned, I really wanted to get this project done. So basically I just worked on it. That's the only project I really worked on over the last couple of weeks. And to be honest, it was very addictive because using my first gradient yarn, I really wanted to see how it was going to turn out. So, you know, I just kept on going and going, and as I said, I got the shawl completed late last night. So what I started out with was some Knit Picks Felici Bear yarn, and using both the Jacquard and Landscapes dies. If you remember from last episode, I made some gradients from yellow to dark red, and I used 2 skeins of the Bear Felici because the pattern is the Maple Leaf Shawl pattern by Natalia at Elf Moda, and here is its paid for pattern, so I won't show the whole thing, of course, but what the pattern does say is the suggested yarn is approximately 700 to 900 meters. So I thought when I was dyeing up my 2 skeins of Felici that would be just the perfect amount. So when I started dyeing, I wanted to make sure that my shawl started out yellow and then went to oranges and then reds. And the very last reds that I dyed were very deep red with some black speckles. Now, if you weren't here last time, I was basing these colors on a maple leaf that I had Googled an image of, and it's actually a tattooed, so I will insert the picture of that tattoo here so you can see what I was inspired by. And I thought that was really cool to see all those different colors. So I was really pleased with how I dyed up my first gradient. But then I started looking, and before I cast on, it was then that I started looking at other projects. This has been done almost 500 times by other Ravelry members. So it's always great to look at these other projects before you begin. What I should have done is looked at these projects before I even dyed up my yarn, because many of them said that they used nowhere near that much yarn in their projects, and sure enough, they went from 400 meters to maybe 600 meters, so averaging 500 meters rather than the 700 to 900. So that got me worried, because if I had begun with my yellow dyed yarn at the very center of my gradient yarn, I'll pop in a picture here of how my gradient turned out. In that cake, I started from the center with the yellow, so if I had just continued using that gradient yarn without stopping, without cutting it or anything, using only 500 meters of it, my maple leaf shawl would have only been yellow and orange, and I'm sure I wouldn't even gotten to the red colors if I had used it the way I had dyed it up. So what I decided to do was cut out some of the yarn as I went along, and there was a larger photo in the pattern that I would mark off as I was going, because it's kind of almost in a crescent shape as you're going along from side to side. So I could tell about how much my yarn was changing color by how far I was going and marking it off on this diagram. So what I ended up doing was cutting out a lot of the mid-range oranges and mid-range reds. I wanted to make sure it went right from the yellow right to the deep red. So I thought, well, I'm obviously not going to throw away all this yarn that I was cutting out, And what I've decided to do is make some Frankensocks out of the yarn because it's Felici. It's perfect for that. And I'll show you when I pull the project out. I saved all the balls of extra yarn that I didn't use, and I'm going to split that in two and make some matching socks to my shawl, and I'm sure I have plenty left over for that. So as I went through my project, as I came near the end, I realized that I probably wouldn't have enough of the deep red to finish it off, but I really wasn't worried. I would rather have the color gradiating to all the colors, and then I could just dye up any yarn that I needed at the end to finish it off, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. As I came to the tips of the maple leaf edges, I realized that I wouldn't have enough yarn, so I went back to the dye pot and pulled out another skein of Felici Bear and did an even darker red than I had already, speckled it with the black again, and then ended up doing another shade, almost a purple, that it ended up being of red, and also a third color at the very end. I did just a complete black, and I thought that maybe the tips would look really neat with just the black. Now when I ended up knitting it up, I used the extra dark red and the purple, but I ended up not using the black after all. When I did try knitting it up at the end, it just was too stark of a difference between the colors, so I think I ended on just the right color. So as you can see by, hopefully my explanation is clear enough, I ended up with a gradient from the yellow to the purple. So what I'll do is I'll show you the shawl, but it will be hard to kind of show you the whole shape of it just by holding it up here. So after I do that, I'll share with you a picture of it on my blocking mats after it was blocked out, dried, and the pins removed. So because after you block it is where all the magic happens. It's before you block it, it doesn't really look like a leaf at all, but just blocking it overnight just was really the finishing touch that really made it really shine. So here's the project, and it's in my own maple leaf bag, so I thought that was very appropriate. So in that bag is where I'm keeping all my extra yarn, and let's see if I can show you this without dropping them all. This is all the extra yarn that I had left over. I don't know if it was really showing up. As I went, I would cut out sections of my gradient and just wound them up. And then what I also did was I tied a knot on the end of each of the balls so that I knew at what point in the series of colors they would be. So this is, I got one knot in it, so this was the first ball that I cut out of my gradient, and then the next one, I think this is it. Yeah, it's got two knots in it, so this is next. And as I said, each one of these I'm going to divide in two and make two balls of gradient yarn to make some gradient socks out of. So these were all the main colors that I dyed up at the beginning of my project. And let's see. And this is all I had left of the red before I completed what the first two skeins were dyed up with. And then when I went back to the dye pots and ended up doing three other colors to finish off the shawl with. So I did an even darker, deeper red, then almost a purple, and I ended up not using just the black. But I am showing that to you because there's something else that I did with the dyeing that I'll share with you in a bit. So I have quite a bit of the yarn left. I ended up using, let's see, I had it written down here, 120 grams of the Felici. which ended up being 523 meters. And before I blocked it, the shawl measured 23 inches high and 37 inches wide. And after I blocked it, it was 37 inches high. So it went from 23 to 37 and went from 37 inches wide to 50 inches wide. So that's how much it stretched out. So I wanted to share with you my finished project. And I'm really, really pleased with how the colors ended up gradually changing through and actually getting in, because I really had to get that red in there. After all, it is a Canadian emblem, and I thought it was perfect, especially for Team Canada, for the Ravellenics, as our Team Canada is competing in the Olympics. So like I say, it's very hard to show you this here, so I'll pop in a picture of it here to show you what it looks like all laid out flat. So yes, I'm very pleased with how this turned out, and I think it's going to be really fun to wear, especially in the fall. Very fall colors. I think this will look really nice on top of just a nice white shirt, or maybe even a black turtleneck. Really make those colors pop. It's so very light. I used my Carbons size 7 US 7 needles for this, and at first, when I first started, I thought, oh, this is going to make it much too loose and really not show the design very well. But once it's blocked, it really is beautiful. You don't want something like this too stiff or thick, so I think using the size 7s ended up being just perfect for this project. So the pattern is it's been out for many years. I think the last update to this was in 2014, so it has been out for quite a while. Other people who have knit this up have mentioned there were a few little typos in it, but once you get going with the pattern, it looks very complex, but it's very, very easy and very intuitive. And even in the places where I realized there was maybe mistakes in the pattern, because there are a couple, to be honest, they're very easy to spot, and you can just go on your own and continue on in pattern really quite easily. So I'm not a huge shawl knitter. I don't have a lot of experience with lace and that, and if I can do it, you know, anybody can do it. It's really looks complex, but is really quite easy. It's just basically a bunch of yarn overs to get that veining in the leaf. The one thing I will say, and a few other projects have mentioned this as well, is there's a lot of ends to weave in. And what I did was, as I wove them in basically as I went, so that I didn't have a whole bunch to finish up with. I had even more than I would have if I would have been able to just knit right through with my gradient without cutting it. But what I did was I made sure that I started new yarn at the edges so that it wouldn't be in the middle of the shawl at all. And that seemed to work out well. And what I did was I wove them in as I went, but I left the ends sticking out a little bit until it was finished blocking, and then I trimmed them all down, because I didn't want, with the stretching of the blocking, to pull that at all out. And on the edges, they give you an option of either knitting the edges or slip stitching the edges, and they mention that, you know, slipping those edges does assist when you're blocking something that much, so that it will stretch a lot more. So I'm very pleased with that pattern. It is really quite easy to do. It's deceivingly easy. When you see the final project, it is quite a dramatic shawl. And I think if you wear it just over your shoulders, people can tell that it's still you know, a maple leaf, a special design. So yeah, very different than anything I've really done before, and I'm really very pleased. I'm happy that I chose it for the Ravellenics, and I'll also, I think, be able to enter this in a few other cows. Maybe I was thinking maybe it has enough red in it that I can enter this in the Penhook and Needles Cardiac Red Along. So I will check with Talia and Marlisha over at Penhook and Needles and see if that's eligible for that knit along. And of course, being a Canadian symbol, I'm going to enter this in other podcasters' Canada knit along as well. And of course, the Victorian Studio podcast, as I mentioned earlier, has its own Canada Cal going on. Of course, I can't participate in my own, but there are many other Canadian podcasters who are running the Canada Cal as well until September 30th. So I'm looking forward to entering that into those as well. Speaking of my own knit along, I thought I would share with you again the prizes for the Canada Cal. As I mentioned, we have over 50 entries so far. We're only about halfway through the knit along, so if you haven't yet participated and want to, make sure you're a member of the Victorian Studio podcast group, and you'll be eligible to enter in any project that is designed by a Canadian using indie Canadian yarn, or maybe a pattern that has anything to do with Canada, like a maple leaf shawl. And yeah, you can be eligible for the prizes that I'm giving away in my podcast group, which are some matching bags to the one that I used for my project. And these are project bags that I sewed up myself. There's a project bag and matching notions bag for each two prizes for those, and they have the nice flannel plaid inside, and of course a maple leaf charm on the zipper. So those are 2 prizes, and then there'll also be 3 prizes of some Canadian chocolate from Rocky Mountain Chocolate, and these are milk chocolate with maple cashews, so sounds delicious. And each one of those will be accompanied by a set of stitch markers and 1 progress keeper that I made up myself, and that again has a maple leaf and the red and white of the Canadian flag on those. So I hope everyone that is entering will continue to participate, and I'm looking forward to seeing even more projects for those prizes. So the last thing that I wanted to share was a little bit more dyeing that I did. As I mentioned, when I was dyeing up that second set of yarn for my shawl, the deep red, the purple, and the black, I ended up not using any of the black. And when I did the final skein of yarn dyeing, I only used the 1 skein, but again I split it up into about 50-gram bundles for these different colors. And so I had some left over at the end, of course, so I just threw in all the black dye that I had already made up for other projects as well. I still had one of my squeeze bottles full of black Currawong landscape dye, which is a wonderful black dye. Many people have listed this as a really good true black dye. So if you're thinking about yarn dyeing and thinking about getting some good colors, I would highly recommend the Landscapes Currawong Black. It is wonderful. So I dyed up enough that I thought I would use at the end of the shawl, but then I had all this dye left over. It wasn't exhausted in the pan. I used the same method as last time. I had the skein soaking in some citric acid and room temperature water. Then I would put it into the dye bath on the stove until I brought it up to a boil, and then let it cool down, and then put it then over onto a towel to to rinse at the very end. So I had all this dye left in the pot and I didn't want to waste it, so I threw in some more of the leftover yarn that had been soaking. And I didn't push it down into the water, I let it just kind of sit on top. So I got a little mini skein left over, and I thought it looked really nice. And while this was sitting in the water, I thought, oh, you know, that's really not a lot to make up something. So I quickly ran downstairs and grabbed another skein I still have a few left, of the Felici yarn, bare yarn. And I thought, well, I'll throw in another skein, but I didn't have it soaking or anything. This was already cooking on the stove. So I thought, I wonder what'll happen. I did a little experiment. I threw in just a regular dry skein of yarn into the dye bath, and it didn't push it all under. I wanted it to be a variegated, so I thought, well, this one had been already soaking, and when I threw in the other dry one, now it hadn't been soaked in citric acid or anything, I wanted to see what would happen and see if you really do need to soak your yarn before dyeing it. And what I determined from my little experiment is you certainly don't. There's the skein of yarn that I threw into the dye bath at the very end just to finish exhausting all that black, and I love the way it turned out. See how different these are. This one was in for just only like a minute more than this one. But because it was soaking in the citric acid and was wet yarn when I put it into the dye bath, it obviously took up more dye. But I really love the way this turned out as well. This was dry, bare yarn, straight from my plastic bag of yarns, went right into the dye bath with no pre-soaking. And when I rinsed them out, after they were finished cooling down, I didn't get any dye runoff of either of them. So that just showed me that yes, you can dye using acid dyes without pre-soaking. It's not imperative that you do that, and you'll get a little bit different results. So I'm really pleased with that, and I thought, well, that might even make a really neat pair of socks with maybe a contrasting heel and toe, with it being darker and then the main part in the lighter, or something that I'd like to use both of these together, maybe even a cowl or maybe a small neckerchief or something like that. I don't know if I could get a shawl out of that. Well, we'll see. But I thought that was a really cool experiment to see how that would turn out, and of course I didn't want to waste any of that precious dye, so that was a fun thing to do in relation to my final dyeing of my gradient yarn for my maple leaf shawl. So I hope that helps somebody out there that might be experimenting with their own yarn dyeing as well. So I think that's about it for my crafting over the last couple of weeks. As I said, I spent every waking minute that I could to try to get that shawl done, because I wanted to make sure it was done before the Olympics were over. Even though we have until this Sunday to finish up, it feels great to have that off the needles and done, because I really didn't know how long it would take me to make it, since it's the first time I've ever done one. So I'm really pleased that it only took the 9 days to do. So the other things that I wanted to share with you, the other things that have been occupying me is, of course, some Pokemon Go, as I mentioned the last episode. I've been having a lot of fun doing that, and since I signed up and began the game 4 weeks ago yesterday, I've walked over 60 kilometers. So I'm really pleased with that, and it's really pushed me to get out and get exercising and discovering things around me. So I hope you don't mind. At the end, I'm going to share with you some more of my Pokemon Go adventures, and I've also been having fun with the technical side of it. There's a lot of Pokemon Go YouTubers out there, and they are recording right off their iPhone, their screen, their game on their screen. And I always wondered how they were able to capture that game footage. And so I was able to find out a free app called Airshow, how to use it and load it. So I'm going to share with you also some video of me playing the game as well, and some surprises that I've gotten while playing it. So it's been a lot of fun, and my daughter is also playing it. Oh, and speaking of my daughter, I finally found a picture that I took 2 years ago when she was young. She was just in the perfect age for when Pokemon was very, very popular back in the 90s. So of course, you know, she had quite the collection, as I mentioned last time, of Pokemon. And I took a picture of the boxes and all the Pikachu collectibles that I had found in my basement to give to her when she asked, you know, if I still had her cards and that kind of thing. So I'll pop in a picture here of all this stacked up on my bed before she came over one evening to pick them up. So here it is here. So that's a lot of Pikachu. There are slippers and all kinds, of course, little figures and straws and little drinking cups and things like that. Everything that we could find with Pikachu, it seemed. Even the display box that says Pokemon, that red box, was a display box from a store that they'd given us. So we still had a couple of those for her as well. And those boxes that are underneath that Pikachu collection have all her other books and toys. She has sets from Japan of Team Rocket, and all still in the packages and everything. So, well, not all. She played with some of them, but the Team Rocket one was still in its package and just perfect condition still. We had that binder of all of her cards and even a little Pikachu t-shirt that she used to wear. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad I was able to find that picture to share with you. So definitely both daughter and I have both loved Pokemon. So this has been so much fun. We got together this past weekend and went to a little craft and antique fair, and then headed over to a farmer's market afterwards. So I'll share some pictures from that with you at the end of the episode as well. And because it was more of a craft and vintage fair, there was only a few dealers there that had vintage items. So we didn't buy much while we were there. We visited with the lady that we had purchased daughter's dress form from, and her name is the same as my daughter's. She's a very nice lady. And so I only purchased one thing, and I got that from her. So I thought I would share that with you as well. So my only little antique vintage thing that I purchased at the show was this cute little tin hopping bird. And this is a very cute tin toy from the 1950s, so it's about 70 years old, and it's from Japan. And it really does work, and I'll see if I'll put in a video of it hopping on the desk. I'll try videoing that after I finish my podcast here. But it is stamped Mikuni, made in Japan, on its little hind there. So it's very cute. So that's all I got when we were at the vintage show on the weekend. But I did notice at the farmer's market there was some wool vendors in that as well. I didn't purchase anything from them, but it was really a very nice day out for both of us. And of course, while we were out, of course, we were playing Pokemon Go as we were hitting different areas. So it's been a lot of fun to do that with my daughter as well. So I hope you enjoyed seeing what I've been up to in the last couple of weeks. And I hope that you enjoyed seeing and learning about the Ravellenics as well over on Ravelry. There's still time to participate if you want to. Just head over to the Ravellenics groups on Ravelry, and even if you don't participate, if you take a look at what other people have been doing, it really has been really inspiring to see. So thank you so much for sharing a few moments with me this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again in 2 weeks to share some more with you. I'll share hopefully my other Canada Cal projects, my Hudson Bay socks, and my Cowichan sweater, which now I can get back to now that my Ravellenics project is complete. So until then, have a nice couple of weeks, everyone. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, in a world we must defend. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, in a world we must defend. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon, in a world we must defend.